The room is already settled when it happens. The lights are warm, the crowd is relaxed, glasses rest on small tables close to the stage. Dean Martin stands where he has stood hundreds of times before, comfortable, unrushed, in control. The song is familiar. His voice moves through it without effort. The audience leans back into the night. Nothing feels uncertain. Then something small shifts. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not ask for attention. It is the kind of sound people are trained to ignore. A woman near the front lowers her head. At first, no one notices, or they notice and choose not to see it. Her shoulders tighten. Her hands come together in her lap. She turns slightly away from the stage as if trying to make herself smaller. Her face disappears behind her hair. Those who later spoke about it said the room did not change all at once. It tightened slowly, like a breath being held without anyone admitting it. Dean continues singing. His expression does not change, but his eyes drift briefly toward the front tables. He sees movement that does not belong to applause or laughter. The woman wipes her face once, then again. Someone at a nearby table notices. A glance is shared, then another. Attention begins to collect in the wrong way. This is not the kind of place where people cry. The show is the focus. The stage is where emotion is allowed. The crowd is meant to receive, not interrupt. Dean reaches the end of a line and holds it longer than expected. The band stays with him. The room stays quiet. Another breath passes. The woman's shoulders shake once more. She looks down, aware now that she has been seen. Dean does not move away from the microphone, but he does not continue either. The music fades. Not sharply, not on cue. It simply thins out as if everyone understands something has shifted but no one knows what comes next. Silence takes its place. The audience waits for him to resume. They assume this is a pause, nothing more. A moment of timing, a beat. Dean remains still. His eyes are no longer scanning the room for smiles. They are fixed forward, focused, measuring. The woman looks up once, unsure why the sound has stopped. When she realizes the room is quiet, her face tightens. She looks away again. The silence grows heavier. This is not an accident. Everyone understands that now. And that is when the rules of the room begin to matter. Las Vegas runs on order, even when it pretends to run on fun. Every seat close to the stage means something. Every table has weight. Some people are there to be entertained. Others are there to be acknowledged. Performers learn this quickly. You do not embarrass the room. You do not draw attention where it does not belong. You do not disrupt the flow unless you are ready to pay for it. Shows succeed because they move forward no matter what happens in the dark. Dean Martin understands these rules better than most. His career depends on ease, on making difficulty look invisible, on never letting the audience feel tension for too long. He is known for making rooms feel lighter, not heavier. That is why the silence unsettles people. Those who were there later said they could feel eyes turning, not toward the stage, but toward each other. Quiet signals pass between tables, small movements meant to restore control. The woman becomes aware that attention is now on her, not concern, not kindness, attention. She presses her lips together. She tries to stop crying. She fails. In rooms like this, vulnerability is not protected. It is managed. Dean remains silent. Someone near the edge of the stage shifts in their seat. Someone else leans back, arms crossed. There is an expectation that the moment will correct itself. It always does. Dean could continue the song. The crowd would applaud. The woman would either leave or compose herself. The night would move on. That is how it usually works. But he does not move. His posture stays relaxed. There is no anger in his face, no drama, just a quiet refusal to proceed as if nothing is happening. The band waits, the audience waits, the silence stretches beyond comfort. People later said that was the longest moment of the night. The room does not know who the pause belongs to anymore. This is where the world he works in shows itself clearly. Vegas sells glamour, but it runs on pressure. Performers are welcome as long as they serve the balance. Step outside that balance and the welcome becomes conditional. Everyone in that room understands that Dean stopping is not a small thing. It is not playful. It is not harmless. Stopping means drawing a line. And lines in that world are noticed. Dean is not a man given to speeches. He does not explain himself. He does not raise his voice. That makes the pause more unsettling. The woman wipes her face again. Her hands shake now. She knows she has become the reason the room has stopped breathing. She did not ask for this. She did not come to be seen. According to accounts, she came to forget something, or to feel less alone for a while, or simply because someone brought her there and she did not know how to say no. Whatever she carried with her that night, it was heavier than the room allowed. Dean looks out across the tables. His gaze passes over people who are used to being in control, men who are not often kept waiting, faces that expect things to return to normal. He does not rush them. He does not hurry himself. The silence becomes a test. This is the moment where most performers would retreat, where the system quietly reasserts itself, where the show continues and the human detail disappears. Dean does not retreat. The room senses it before anything is said. Something has already changed, not loudly, not publicly, but permanently. The woman sits frozen, caught between relief and fear. The attention has stopped the music, but it has not softened. The people who matter in this room are watching Dean now, not the woman. They are waiting to see whether he will fold. He stands there, calm, unflinching, fully aware of what it means to hold a room like this in silence. And for the first time that night, the power in the room does not feel settled. It feels suspended. The pause continues, just long enough for everyone to understand that when Dean speaks again, or moves again, the night will not return to what it was. And no one yet knows who will pay for that. Las Vegas in those years was not just a place, it was a system. On the surface, it sold comfort, soft lights, easy laughter, music that promised escape, but underneath everything ran on balance. Who belonged where, who was allowed to matter, who was expected to disappear quietly. Rooms like this one were designed to feel relaxed, but they were tightly controlled. Every table near the stage meant influence. Every seat carried an unspoken rank. People did not sit wherever they wanted. They sat where they were allowed. Performers learned this quickly. You could be famous and still expendable, loved by the crowd and still replaceable. As long as the room flowed, you were valued. The moment you disrupted that flow, you became a problem. Silence was dangerous. Attention was currency. And embarrassment was something powerful people did not tolerate. That was why most performers kept their eyes forward. The audience was meant to exist as a single shape. Applause, laughter, shadows beyond the stage lights. Individual problems did not belong there. They complicated things. In this world, kindness was expected to stay private, if it happened at all. Dean Martin had survived in this system for years because he understood it. He was not reckless. He was not naive. His image depended on making everything seem effortless. The drink in his hand, the smile, the way he moved through a room as if nothing could touch him. That image was protection. People felt safe around him because he did not create tension. He absorbed it, smoothed it out, turned it into charm. But that same charm came with expectations. You did not stop a show unless the room allowed it. You did not challenge attention unless you were ready for consequences. You did not make powerful people uncomfortable for someone who could not protect you in return. That was the rule. Those seated close to the stage were not just fans. They were watchers, enforcers of the mood. If something went wrong, they were the ones who decided how it would be handled. Usually quietly. Security did not exist to comfort the vulnerable. It existed to keep the night intact, to remove disruptions without disturbing the illusion. And everyone in the room knew it. That was why the woman's tears mattered more than they should have. They were not dramatic enough to be dismissed, and not invisible enough to be ignored. They sat in an uncomfortable space, a reminder that real life had slipped into a place designed to avoid it. People later said the tension did not come from her crying. It came from the fact that it was happening where it was not supposed to happen. The front of the room, close enough to the stage that ignoring her felt intentional. In rooms like this, intention carried weight. Dean was expected to resolve moments like this by moving past them. That was his role. Keep the night light, keep the crowd happy, let the system handle the rest. He had done it before, everyone had. But stopping meant refusing that role. It meant saying the system was not enough this time. And that was risky. Because once you acknowledge someone publicly, you give them presence. Once you give them presence, you challenge the hierarchy of the room. The powerful did not fear noise. They feared loss of control. That was why the silence felt threatening. People seated near the front began to sense that the pause was no longer about timing. It was about authority, about who decided what mattered. The band stayed still because they understood. Musicians learned early when not to move. The audience held their breath because uncertainty spreads faster than confidence. Dean remained calm, but calm did not mean safe. He was not posturing. He was not performing. He was choosing not to follow the script everyone else relied on. Those who knew him later said this was not impulsive. It was measured. He understood exactly what was being tested. The woman, meanwhile, sat trapped between worlds. She did not belong to the system, but she was now inside its focus. She felt the weight of eyes that were not kind. She had no way to know whether the pause would protect her or expose her further. That uncertainty was part of the danger. Vegas did not forgive disruptions easily. It tolerated them only when they served someone powerful enough to justify them. Dean Martin was powerful, but even power had limits. As the silence stretched, those limits hovered in the air, unspoken, heavy. Everyone in the room sensed that whatever came next would not be forgotten, not because it would be loud, but because it would quietly reveal how much control really mattered, and whether anyone was willing to risk it. She sits close enough to the stage that the lights still reach her face. Not fully, but enough. Those who later tried to describe her struggled with details. Her clothes were unremarkable. Her hair was neat but slightly out of place, as if she had run her hand through it too many times. Nothing about her suggested she wanted attention. That was part of the problem. She did not look like someone who belonged to the spectacle. She looked like someone who had come carrying something heavy and hoped the room might quiet it for a while. People later said she arrived early. She did not drink much. She listened more than she laughed. No one knew why she cried, not really, and that uncertainty made the moment sharper. It could have been grief, recent, unresolved. It could have been exhaustion, the kind that does not announce itself until the lights go down. It could have been something said to her quietly at the table, something meant to stay private. What mattered was not the reason. It was the fact that her control slipped. In that room, control was everything. When she first lowered her head, she tried to hide it. A small movement, almost polite. She wiped her eyes quickly, hoping no one would notice. But tears have a way of changing posture. They pull the shoulders in. They tighten the chest. They make the body visible even when the person wants to disappear. The people around her noticed before she realized they had. A man at a nearby table glanced over, then looked away. Another leaned back slightly, assessing whether this was something that needed to be handled. No one spoke to her. No one offered comfort. Comfort was not their role. The longer it went on, the more isolated she became. She sat frozen, aware that leaving would draw attention and staying might make things worse. The stage felt far away now. The music, when it had still been playing, sounded distant, as if it belonged to a different room. She pressed her lips together to stop herself. It did not work. At some point, she realized the sound had faded. That was when fear entered the moment. She looked up and saw that Dean Martin was no longer singing, that the band had stopped, that the room had turned quiet in a way she had not caused before. Her first instinct was embarrassment. Her second was panic. She understood enough about places like this to know that being the reason a show stopped was dangerous. Not dramatic dangerous, quietly dangerous. She looked down again, her face burning, her hands shaking now more visibly. She wanted the moment to end, any way it could. The attention on her was no longer casual. It had sharpened. In that silence, she felt smaller than she had moments before. Not because people were staring, but because she could feel herself being weighed. In rooms like this, people were evaluated quickly. Worth, risk, inconvenience. She had none of the things that protected people here. No influence, no authority, no reason for anyone to take her side. And yet the show had stopped for her. That fact alone made her feel exposed. According to those nearby, someone leaned toward another table and murmured something. Not about her feelings, about timing, about order. She sensed that the room wanted her resolved, quiet, invisible again. But she could not simply stop crying. Tears do not respond to rules. The longer the silence held, the more she understood that something larger than her pain was unfolding. She was no longer just a person having a moment. She had become a point of tension between the stage and the room. That knowledge weighed on her. She straightened slightly, trying to regain composure, trying to help the night move on. But control does not return just because it is requested. She had crossed an invisible line without meaning to. And now she was standing in a space where decisions were being made above her, around her, without her voice. Dean Martin was still standing at the microphone. She did not look at him again. She could not. She waited quietly for the room to decide what would happen to her. Whether the pause would pass, whether she would be erased, or whether something else, something unexpected, was about to take its place. The room does not rush to correct itself. That is what makes the moment dangerous. In places like this, disorder is usually handled quickly. A signal, a quiet word, a subtle removal, but nothing happens right away. The silence lingers longer than it should. People begin to shift in their seats. Not all at once. One person leans back. Another crosses his arms. Someone lifts a glass and sets it down again without drinking. Small movements that signal discomfort, not concern. Attention slowly moves away from the woman and toward the stage. This is no longer about her tears. It is about the pause. Those seated closest to the front understand this better than anyone. They are used to deciding when moments end. They are not used to waiting. A man near the edge of the room glances toward security, not openly, just enough to be seen. Another looks toward the band as if willing them to resume. No one moves. The musicians remain still, hands resting where they left them. They have learned to read rooms like this. They know when motion would make things worse. Dean Martin stands quietly, his posture unchanged. He is not frozen. He is choosing not to move. That difference matters. Pressure begins to form in the space between the stage and the tables. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It presses inward. Someone clears his throat. The sound feels sharp in the silence. It draws a few looks. No one follows it with laughter. The woman feels the shift before she understands it. The focus has moved past her, but the danger has not. It has only changed shape. She sits very still now, afraid that any movement might pull the attention back. Her breathing slows, not because she is calm, but because she is trying to disappear. The people watching the stage are no longer thinking about kindness. They are thinking about control. According to accounts, someone close to the front makes a subtle gesture, a raised eyebrow, a small shake of the head, the kind of signal meant to restore order without confrontation. Dean does not respond. That refusal sharpens the moment. He is expected to take the hint, to smooth things over, to resume the performance and let the system absorb the disruption quietly. But he remains where he is. The silence stretches again. This time it feels heavier. Those who know the room sense that a line is being approached, not crossed yet but close. The kind of line that, once crossed, changes how people remember you. Dean is aware of this. People later said his face showed no tension, no anger, just focus. He looks out across the tables, not searching for approval, not challenging anyone directly, simply holding the room in place. That alone is unsettling. Pressure increases not because of what he does, but because of what he does not do. The woman senses it too. She feels the air tighten. She knows the moment has grown larger than her pain. That knowledge brings a different kind of fear. She did not ask to become part of this. She keeps her eyes down. Her hands are steady now, but only because she has no energy left to shake. Somewhere in the room, someone exhales sharply. Another shifts again. A few people exchange looks that carry irritation rather than concern. This is not how nights like this are supposed to unfold. Dean Martin is supposed to make things easy. That expectation presses against him now. It carries years of goodwill and years of warning. He understands both. Stopping a show is one thing. Holding it still is another. Those closest to power begin to sense that the pause is not temporary. It is deliberate. That makes it harder to ignore. A moment passes where it feels as if someone might intervene, step forward, say something, restore the balance. No one does. The room waits for Dean. That shift, subtle as it is, matters. Authority has tilted just slightly toward the stage. Dean remains calm. According to those who watch closely, this is the point where the night could have broken in several directions. He could have resumed singing. He could have made a light remark. He could have let the moment dissolve. Instead, he stays with it. The pressure now sits squarely on him. The system has given him every chance to retreat quietly. He does not take it. The woman feels something change, though she does not yet know what it means. The silence no longer feels like a threat aimed only at her. It feels like a standoff unfolding above her. Dean stands alone in it. The room understands now that whatever happens next will not be an accident. It will be a choice. And once made, it will not be taken back. The pause tightens one last time. Then Dean shifts his weight slightly. Not enough to break the silence, just enough to signal that the moment everyone feared has finally arrived. Dean does not raise his voice. That is the first thing people remember. In a room trained to respond to volume, he offers none. No sharp command, no performance, just a calm presence that refuses to release the moment. He steps slightly closer to the microphone, not dramatically, not enough to draw attention to the movement itself, enough to signal intent. The silence does not break. It settles. Those who were there later said this was the point where the room fully understood it was no longer in control. The pause was no longer waiting to be corrected. It had become deliberate. Dean's face remains relaxed. His posture stays loose. There is nothing confrontational about him, and yet no one interrupts. That contradiction is what makes the moment dangerous. He acknowledges the situation without spectacle, not by numbing the woman, not by explaining her pain. He does not turn her into a story. He does not ask the room to feel anything. He simply refuses to move past what is happening. In doing so, he changes the rules. The attention that once pressed down on the woman begins to shift. Slowly, uneasily, eyes move away from her table and back toward the stage. The weight she has been carrying does not vanish, but it lessens. For the first time since the music stopped, she feels something other than fear. She feels space. Dean does not look at the people who expect reassurance. He does not scan for approval. He holds the room as if it belongs to everyone equally, which in a place like this is unsettling. Power depends on hierarchy. Dean removes it without announcing that he has done so. The room stays quiet because no one knows how to respond without exposing themselves. Applause would feel wrong. Speaking would feel risky. Interrupting would feel like a challenge. So no one does anything. Those closest to authority sense it slipping, not dramatically, not publicly, but enough to matter. They are used to shaping moments. Now they are being shaped by one. Dean's calm becomes the center of the room. It is not heroic, it is steady, almost gentle. The woman keeps her eyes down. She does not yet trust what is happening. She has learned not to, but she notices that the pressure has eased. No one is watching her now. No one is waiting for her to fix herself. She breathes out. According to accounts, this is when the room changes temperature. Not literally, emotionally. The tension does not disappear, but it transforms. It becomes reflective rather than aggressive. People begin to understand that the moment is not about defiance. It is about acknowledgement. Dean allows the silence to do the work. He does not rush it. He does not fill it with explanation. In rooms like this, silence is usually used to intimidate. Here, it becomes a form of protection. That reversal is subtle, but it lands. The people who expected dominance now feel watched, not judged, simply seen. Dean stands in that space without apology. This is the line being crossed. Not the stopping of the show. That already happened. This is the refusal to return to normal without accounting for what was revealed. He does not offer comfort in a way that would embarrass the woman. He does not make her the center of attention. He lets the room feel its own discomfort instead. That choice matters. It preserves her dignity while quietly challenging everyone else. The silence stretches again, but this time it feels different. It no longer threatens to collapse. It holds. The band remains still. The audience remains quiet. The powerful remain uncertain. Dean's composure leaves no space for argument. There is nothing to push against, no anger to provoke, no weakness to exploit. That is what makes it effective. Those who later reflected on the night said this was the moment they realized Dean was not trying to win anything. He was not making a point for later retelling. He was simply unwilling to ignore what had surfaced. In that refusal, the room loses its certainty. The woman feels it too. She senses that the danger has shifted away from her. Whatever consequences exist now belong elsewhere. She does not look up, but she straightens slightly in her chair. A small movement, a quiet reclaiming of herself. Dean holds the moment just long enough for that to happen. Then and only then does he prepare to move forward. Not back to where the night was, but beyond it. The room understands this instinctively. What comes next will not erase what has happened. It will carry it. And everyone present knows they have just witnessed something they were never meant to see. Not a performance. A line crossed quietly and without permission. The show does not end in celebration. It continues because it has to, but it does not return to what it was. Those who were there later said the music sounded different after that. Not worse, just heavier, as if something had been placed inside it that could not be removed. Dean finishes the night the way he always does. Calm, professional, no visible crack in the surface. The audience applauds because applause is the only response they know how to give. But it is restrained. Not because they are unhappy, because they are unsure. Backstage, the mood is quiet. There are no raised voices, no confrontation, nothing dramatic enough to point to later. That is how consequences usually arrive in places like this. They arrive politely. People avoid direct language. They speak around the moment instead of about it. Comments are made about timing, about flow, about how certain things can be misunderstood. No one accuses Dean of doing anything wrong. They do not need to. He understands what is being said. According to accounts, there is no celebration of what happened, no sense of victory, just a recognition that a boundary was touched. Dean listens, he nods, he does not argue. He has been in this world long enough to know how it works. Disapproval does not always announce itself. Sometimes it simply tightens. Invitations become slower. Calls take longer to return. Opportunities arrive with conditions attached. Nothing is taken away openly. But nothing feels the same either. The woman does not come backstage. There is no meeting, no exchange that would turn the moment into a story. She leaves the room quietly as she arrived. Some say she was escorted out gently. Others recall she slipped away on her own. No one remembers applause for her. No one remembers a spotlight. That anonymity protects her. It also keeps the moment from becoming something larger than it was. Dean does not speak publicly about it later. He does not reference it in interviews. He does not turn it into an example of anything. That silence is intentional. In this world, drawing attention to moral choices can be just as dangerous as making them. Privately, though, those close to him notice a change. He becomes more measured in certain rooms, more distant, less willing to lean fully into the illusion that everything is easy. The charm remains, the timing remains, but something underneath has shifted. People later said he seemed more aware of how fragile control really was, how quickly a room could turn on a single human detail. There is no visible punishment, no headline, no dramatic fallout. That is not how cost usually works. The cost shows up in restraint, in caution, in the quiet understanding that certain moments will not be forgotten, even if they are never named. Dean carries that understanding with him. He does not regret what he did, but regret is not the measure here. The weight is. Stopping the show did not make him a hero. It made him visible in a way he had avoided for years, not to the audience, to the system. And systems remember. The woman's life continues somewhere else, away from the lights, away from the room that briefly made her pain public. There is no record of how that night stayed with her, no interview, no account to balance the scale. But those who witnessed it said she left standing a little straighter than she had arrived. That may be the only trace. For Dean, the aftermath is quieter. He keeps performing. He keeps moving through the same spaces, but the pause lives with him. It shows up in how he reads rooms now, how quickly he notices small disruptions, how carefully he measures silence. He has seen what happens when the illusion breaks. And he knows now that sometimes, once broken, it cannot be fully restored. The cost of that knowledge is subtle. It does not announce itself. It simply stays. The story does not travel far at first. It is not printed, it is not promoted, it is not repeated on television or turned into a joke later. It survives the way quiet truths often do, passed carefully, lowered voices, people leaning in when they speak. Those who were there remember it differently. Some focus on the silence, some on the tension, some on the woman, though few can describe her clearly. What stays consistent is the feeling that something real slipped through the surface of a place designed to prevent that. Dean Martin never corrects those memories. He never shapes them. That matters. In a career built on control and timing, he lets this moment remain unfinished, not polished, not explained. It stays slightly uncomfortable even years later. That is why it lasts. People often think legacy is built from big gestures, loud stands, clear victories. This moment does not fit that idea. It does not resolve cleanly. No one walks away changed in a way that can be measured. And yet, those who witnessed it carry it. They carry the image of a man who could have moved on and did not. A man who could have smoothed the night over and chose to let it stop instead. Not to teach a lesson. Not to be remembered. Simply because something human had been exposed, and ignoring it felt wrong. Dean is often remembered for ease, for laughter, for making heavy things feel light. This moment reveals the cost of that skill. He knew how fragile the illusion was because he helped build it night after night. He also knew when it mattered enough to interrupt it. That is not heroism, it is awareness. The woman remains unnamed. That too matters. Her anonymity keeps the story from turning into spectacle. She does not become a symbol. She remains a person who had a private moment in a public place. The dignity of that is rare. Her pain is not explained. It does not need to be. The point is not what broke her composure. The point is that it happened and someone chose not to look away. In the years that follow, Dean continues working in the same world. He does not step outside it. He does not condemn it publicly. He understands it too well for that. But those close to him notice a shift. He listens differently. He pauses more often. He allows silence to do work others rush to cover. That night becomes a quiet reference point, not spoken aloud but present. A reminder that control is not the same as strength. People later said this moment helped them see him more clearly, not as a myth, not as an image, but as a man capable of stillness when stillness carried risk. That is not a quality that photographs well. It does not fit neatly into stories told too loudly. But it defines him. The room that night returned to normal. New shows followed. New crowds filled the seats. The system absorbed the disruption, as systems always do. But something small remained unsettled. A recognition that power can be paused, that attention can be redirected without force, that dignity does not require permission. Dean never claimed that recognition. He never named it. He simply lived with it. And that may be why the story survives at all. Because it was never meant to be told. It was only meant to happen. A man stood still when movement was expected. A room was held in silence long enough for a stranger to stop being reduced to a problem. Nothing more. Nothing less. And sometimes, that is enough to reveal who someone really is.